Hey, growth seekers, how are you today? Today, we're going to have another important topic that I find especially important for my business owners, but it's important for everybody. And that's the ability to stay in a beautiful state during the pandemic, and additionally, staying in a beautiful state when bad things happen. So, I've worked with tons of business owners that have been through the pandemic, had a lot of bad things happen, and why being in a beautiful state is so important is the research shows, there's tons of research that shows if you maintain a beautiful state, I also refer to it just being happy and resourceful. If you can be in that place, the research shows that one, you're more creative, and two, you're more resourceful, and you are a better problem solver. And what better time to be a problem solver than what we're dealing with now, where a lot of times your revenue streams are being cut off, government is implementing policies that go against you. There's a lot of things working against the business owner. And so the more that you can stay in that resourceful place, the better off you'll be. And the other part of it is staying in that place, you'll serve your customers at a higher level, and any of your other relationships will be better if you stay in that really resourceful place. So the challenge is, though, what happens is our mind is easily hooked. And I call it, there's a term that I'll use, it's called the default mode network. And it's just a fancy term of the survival brain. And when bad things happen, your mind tends to go there. And so, you know, so our goal is to have a ritual and have a strategy that we can pull ourselves out of that and be really resourceful. So today, what I'm going to talk about, first of all, to stay consistently in a resourceful place, the first thing I would say is you have to make it a must. Because again, the brain is so easily triggered going down that survival brain path that if you don't make it a must, you're screwed. So you've got to make it a must. And part of making it a must is having a ritual that you set up that you do every day. And secondly, there's some other tools that you can use in the moment when things happen. So for today, I'm going to go through 2 foundational principles that you want to follow, and then 3 specific strategies within those principles that when you do, it's much easier to consistently stay in a really resourceful, beautiful state. So what I would also say is there are a bunch of different tools and strategies that you can use, and I don't have time to go through all of them. I'm just going through my favorites that have worked for me, and I don't care what's happening, man. And my wife will tell you, I'm always in this great place. So the 2 core foundational principles are cultivating vital health. And that's a whole other topic in itself. Yet I think you could all agree when you feel great, it is easy to be in a great state. It is easy. It's easier. Your brain works better. Your state is better. That's a foundational principle. And there's ways that you can cultivate vital health. Again, another topic for another day, but that's one. Second, I would say, foundational principle is having a compelling future, something that inspires you, that you connect to consistently. What I absolutely know is business owners or clients I have that have been derailed by the pandemic, are depressed or whatever, and some down emotion, they typically didn't have a compelling future. And that's a recipe for being in a less than beautiful state. So those are 2 core foundational principles. And if you only did those two, you would be well ahead of most people. Well, way ahead of most people if you just followed those two principles. Yet, even with those two principles, that if you're living them, you're going to have things happen to you, whether during the day, during the week, that even if you're living those two, can take you out of a beautiful state. I'm sure maybe some of you don't have that happen, but I know me, I'm very positive. I can deal with a lot, but there's things that can trigger you. So this goes to the three strategies I use on top of that that I found very effective. And so the first strategy that I want to talk about is it's a it's a strategy that I talked about on Monday. I posted one of my favorite morning rituals, and it involves using a technology called Newcom. Now, I first want to say I don't work for Newcom, so I don't get any commission if you get it. It's just one of my favorite strategies or technologies that I've used, and I've been using it for 5 years. And I'll be quick without going and geeking out on all the science of it. But basically, Newcom balances your nervous system. So when you have a lot of bad things happen to you, you found out that you just got a huge tax bill, or you just got really bad news. There's a problem in your business, or there's something that's creating fear in you. By doing Newcom, it centers you and balances you, and it's highly effective at doing that. And Harvard Medical School did the research. They said it's the only technology they know that balances the nervous system. And so I use that. Another option, if you don't want to spend the money for Newcom, I would recommend getting a book called Bliss Brain, and they have a meditation called the Bliss Brain Meditation that is also a valuable tool. Now, if I had my choice, I like Newcom better, but the Bliss Brain piece is a very valuable tool. So let me go back to Newcom. So I use that, and I use it in the morning. And within that, using Newcom, I have like certain strategies I use, and I'll use sort of the process of the strategy of using contrast, or I'll think about, well, as I start using Newcom, I start thinking about, well, if this was my last day on earth, what am I grateful for? And as corny as that sounds, I'm serious, because I realize I'm not guaranteed, any day. I've had friends that got wiped out in a car accident or all sorts of crazy things. And I think the older you get, the more you realize that life is so precious. So I think about, this today was my last day. What am I incredibly grateful for? And I'll do other things like, and I worked for a time over in the former Soviet Union, and God, I worked in these places where the average income was $15 a month, and they didn't have running water, or it was crazy. And I think about, well, I'm really grateful that I have, I can go to the grocery store, buy any food I want. I have running water. I have a beautiful home. I go through. Now, talking about gratitude, I realize there's nothing new to anyone that's listening to this. What I would say though, and this has been my experience with people mouth a lot about being grateful and how it's important. Very few people live gratitude. And to live gratitude, you have to connect emotionally each day and not get, I call it, Tony talks about the law of familiarity. After a while, it's like a checklist. Well, yeah, I'm grateful for this. Yeah, I'm grateful for that. You've got to emotionally connect. And I find it easier when I'm doing Newcom, when all the distractions are wiped away and I can zero in on what I really appreciate about this life. It's an art in doing this. It's an art, but it's worth cultivating that ability and mastering it. So the other part within Newcom is I do an emotional flood. And during that emotional flood is I connect to the magic moments of my life. And I've had many of them. And again, I emotionally connect to those magic moments in my life. And my wife and I, we love to travel. And we've traveled to some amazing places, beautiful places. Just last month we were in Maui, and we went out and saw the whales, and the weather was perfect, and we had a whale right underneath our sailboat, and you can hear it, the sounds they make, and it vibrated through the boat. It was just so cool. And I'll connect to that. I I did a rim to rim hike through the Grand Canyon, and it was so stunningly beautiful with great friends. And I connect to that every morning. I'm connecting to things like that. I also I I've got some amazing people that have been in my life and still are in my life. And I connect and think about those people and how fortunate and how lucky. I mean, it starts raising my energy level as I'm going through Newcom. The last part in my strategy, again, just three parts of the strategy. The last part of my strategy is I use a process called priming, and I'll go through it really briefly. If you want more information about it, is Tony Robbins does the whole thing. If you do Google Tony Robbins priming, I think it's on YouTube. He goes through all the details of it. But basically, what you're doing, a process that primes the brain for whatever you want to prime it for that day. So real simply, what it is you raise your hands up like this, and you breathe pretty vigorously through your nose, and you're doing and I'll do that. And after about 8 times of that, I pause and just feel the effect of it, and then do another one. And I do about 6 of those, basically 6 sets of that. And as I'm priming, I have a statement that I use, and you might choose a completely different statement. But my statement that I use is I say, I surrender and accept. I cannot control how life unfolds. And which is just true. I mean, there's a lot I cannot control. And that's typically what upsets people is they think they can control life, and when it go their way, then they get really upset. Then with that statement after that, I'll say, my statement is, how is life happening for me? And not to me. Again, it's a Tony Robbins statement, but I use it and it works really well. And what's the perfection in it? And I will sit there, and as I do that priming, basically how I see it is I'm making my mind more immune from being hooked. And I had just today, simple little things can derail you sometimes. Is I had a tight schedule. I only had a few minutes to think about what I wanted to talk about today. I had it all planned out, and my wife wanted me to pick her up some lunch because she's also doing a webinar today for her work. And I go to pick up, and she ordered this chicken salad, and so I go to the place to pick it up, and it's supposed to be ready. We timed it all out, and it's not ready. And I got to wait a half hour before I actually get it. And now I'm on a really time crunch. And so that's a great case of where the mind is expecting it to be a certain way. And it's a place where the mind is easily triggered and going through not so nice thoughts like, oh my God, these people are idiots, I got to get back. And so in that moment, I think about that statement that I prime, that how is life happening for me, not to me. And I'm thinking about all these thoughts like, wow, it's giving me an opportunity to slow down and, think about some other things I haven't thought about in a moment. Let me just use this time to think about how else I'm going to use the rest of the day. What else am I grateful for? I went through all these different things as opposed to letting the default mind kick in and getting really pissed about it. And I got my stuff, came back, only had a few minutes to prepare. So today's going to be a little rough. I'm not fully prepared, but I know the topic, I live it. So my only request today is your assignment, leaving after you hear this, your assignment is to take at least two principles from today, ideally 3, and use them. The other piece I would ask is that if you would identify your baseline before you do that, on a 1 to 10 scale. 10, I consistently live in a beautiful state. 1, I'm never in a beautiful state. I'm always in a negative state. Where's your baseline? Go for a week. Every day, use 2 to 3 of the principles we talked about today, and then reassess where you are with this. I already know if you do it, you're going to be better off. You'll be a better business leader. You'll be a better father, mother. You'll be more resourceful. Your relationships will be better. You'll be happier. Your health will be better. So go ahead and do it. Anyway, thank you all and have a great day.